Dr. John Lonyangopuo, West Pokot, and Deputy Governor Mr. Mweke joining us as well. Thank you guys so much. Of course, we start with on a very interesting story here on this dailies. On the Daily Nation, the front page is governors clash with Treasury on idle cash, and says that the PS says counties should be taken to task for failing to absorb funds which they could use in fighting the effects of drought. And they say that they are holding more than 1 billion Kenyan shillings each. And of course, since we have the Deputy Governor of Nairobi here, is it true that you're holding on to this money, and why? Because the drought is quite serious.
Yeah, money in the accounts doesn't mean it's money that is lying idle. I think that's one thing that we really need to look at more critically. The way the county governments work, and actually even the national government, is money for development cannot be spent once it's already committed. So for example, if you're building infrastructure like roads or bridges and stuff like that, then what happens is you don't pay the contractor. If you've given a contract of 10 million, once you issue the contract, you don't give the contractor the 10 million. You have to give them in stages as the work goes on. And then once the work is finished, you even withhold 10% for a 6-month liability period. So that if anything happens to the road, if it was not done properly, if there are some mistakes, then the contractor is obligated to fix it. So just because the money is inside the bank and there's a balance, it doesn't mean that the money goes unspent. That's one. Number two, we also operate on budgets. And the senators will tell you, because the governors appear before the Senate committee to see if we spent outside of our budgets. The Auditor General, you've seen reports where they come and say that you misappropriated funds because you budgeted for this and then you spent it on the other. So some of that money, again, is already budgeted for under budgets that are approved by the county assemblies. So again, if you spend that money on things that are not budgeted for, or things that were not given a vote by the county assembly, then what happens again is you get cited for abuse of office, misappropriation of funds, and so on and so forth. If you ask me, that headline is a little sensational by the PS of the Treasury, and to me, reading that story, it looks like he's shifting blame. So I just want to tell Dr. Thuget to read the Constitution, Schedule 4, under the national government functions, and it's actually number 24 in those functions of the national government, that disaster management is also a function of the national government. So I think the drought is biting. We are empathizing with the people who are not having enough water to drink, enough food to eat, and what the national government needs to do is they need to come together with governors, because this all affects us. It's our people who are hurting, and come up with a solution on how we can how we can take care of this drought so that life can move on properly for the citizens of Kenya, instead of shifting blame from one government to another. That won't help. Yeah. Right.
Maybe also you could give your views on that, Senator Elachi, because we've always had, there's supposed to be a drought preparedness, early warning signs, and every time we find ourselves in this situation where we lose lives because of the biting drought.
First of all, I would want to tell both governors and Treasury that it is unfortunate. And if we have money for development, for example, and within the 11 counties where we have drought, I think they can look at the priorities, and I think they have that right to just communicate back to Treasury. But also there's money for emergencies in every of these counties, and not just counties. There's money of emergency on CDF, there's money of emergency on the Women's Reps Fund. What we don't understand as Senate, who we don't have any fund, is why can't they come together, sit and say, I have a million, Bob, you have 5 million, we have 10 million, put together, it's an emergency of our county, and do what is supposed to be done. Because we are talking, we have money, but then in terms of now implementing into an emergency becomes now an issue of back and forth. But now going back to Treasury, with what he says, 1 billion shillings of each county. Each county has its own way. There are those who are able to absorb fast, and I know it's because of those reporting. So some will have development, some might have real money, but it's because of that observing that is bringing also an issue. And also I know our laws are very interesting. So one of the things we need going forward, and I'm hoping we can do that in the next parliament, the parliament that will be there next, that they will look at these laws and try and reorganize themselves and amend most of the laws to be friendly in terms of, if you have an emergency in a county, there is a quick way of doing things, getting money, and not making people die as we negotiate how money should be drawn from this side to this side. For me, I think that, but for now, they still have very good ways of doing this. The governors have some money on emergency, the woman rep has some money on emergency, the MP has the 5, if you have a county, some have 5 constituencies, come together and deal with this issue. Let us not start a blame game when we know we have money. Yes.
Senator Nyangopo, your county is also one of the ones that has been affected by this drought, and of course there is the issue of, yes, like he said, there are budgets, but there's always, even in our daily lives, there's always some money somewhere for an emergency. What do you feel should be done?
Personally, I join my colleagues in asking myself why these headlines from the people who are supposed to be giving solution. When Treasury says that there is some idle money, and yet they are the people who have the power to cause that money to be spent, it is quite absurd and surprising. So I think what should be done is, just like it has been treated before, the national government should call an emergency meeting between the governors, all of them, and sit, because ideally the docket of CS Kiunjuri has a budget to be dealing with, to mitigate such kind of emergencies that has come, so that together as a nation we are able to approach and deal with the issue head on. We have not seen signs of anybody attempting to do that at all, and now this one discourages further, because you are pointing fingers somewhere that there is money lying idle, and there is no government money that ever lies idle. Never, never, ever, because everything is fully budgeted for. And when you see it in the books, it doesn't mean that the real actual liquid cash is there, because they have to wait for the tranche to be given. So if Tuge has given, he has to tell us whether what has happened then, because the docket of CS Kiunjuri should be able to now spend quickly what was meant for those kind of emergencies. But for governors, again, they should also be able to summon to cause the county assemblies to sit and call an emergency to see if they can be able to vary a little amount of money that they may be having for anything, including seeking for permission. They have no permission themselves to stop a government project that is going on, whether it's at level of the county or whatever. But they can seek permission from relevant authorities like POA, PPOA, and so on, that we are stopping this for the sake of this, so that when it comes to auditing, there is sufficient evidence to say there was no malpractice anyway. There's such a case, such times as this. Some departments can easily spend money. In the course of spending money, there is loss of money. So it is sufficient, the safeguards need to be put in place so that you don't open loopholes for people to begin to consume money in the name of fighting for this. So a concerted effort needs to be done. Like we saw 2 years ago, I thought the deputy president called all governors when I saw, and I think they even came up with a budget for each county. This one is worse than what we saw last time.
Maybe you can paint the picture for us of what the situation is like back in West Pokot.
In West Pokot, we did not choose our location to be found in West Pokot. Somehow, the climate in the whole world, somehow God positioned climates and changes to be wherever they are. So where we are today, we are in a dilemma where all the rivers have dried. There is simply no grass and no water for the animals. So remember, most of the people in West Pokot and the neighboring counties, Turkana, Samburu, Baringo, and most parts of Kenya are pastoralists. So they depend on these living animals. So if those things are, there's no grass and no water, it means everything comes to a standstill. That is a time when you need your government, the government for the people, to step in and come. It's a very disparate case, sincerely disparate to the extent that we need grass bail. There are a lot of ADC farms in this republic. The Minister of Agriculture, the relevant departments or parastato needs to link up and see how they can move and work with CS Kiunjuri if they have money to purchase grass, because you can also not remove harvested grass meant for a department. They need to sell so that they can be bought and given animals. For the few days that we are in this dilemma, meanwhile we also ask Kenyans to pray, because it's only God who gives rain, and when we go on our knees we'll be able to get it. But let's not wait for those miracles to happen. Let's do what we can be able to do. Yes. Right.
Of course, maybe just a final comment from on this matter from the deputy governor, because like we're all saying, there must be some provision in the budget for emergency. What do you think can be done?
The provisions are there. Of course, I'll talk about Nairobi County, because every county is unique and is managed differently. In Nairobi, most of the emergencies we have are fires. Right. We've seen collapsed buildings before, which constitutes disasters. We've seen floods, although those have not been taken control over because of good planning. Nowadays, you see that when it rains thoroughly, the city doesn't flood like it used to, because we've mitigated those. But we do have an emergency fund. The law under the PFM Act allows and provides for the counties to have an emergency fund, and you're allowed to put up to 2% of your entire budget of the emergency fund. So we have one. We work with our ward administrators and our sub-county administrators to let us know where this money needs to go to, because there are our people on the ground. That's the governor's office devolved to the grassroots, and so they know the people who live within the different areas of the city. They know what bites them, and we take care of them accordingly. But about this national disaster now that we are calling drought, because you can see livestock is in danger, which is people's livelihood. You can see women, children are getting dehydrated, are dying because of no water and no food. Others are eating wild berries that they have to boil for hours and hours, food that's actually supposed to be meant for animals. It's not the time to sit down and start blaming who should be doing what. And I agree with the senators that we need to talk. And we've done that before. I mean, when we were having El Nino, the deputy president did call the governors. All the counties were allocated money to go into El Nino. The El Nino didn't happen, so we don't know what happened to the money. But now is a time to come together as a country and do the same thing. I like what Senator Elachi says. Everybody come and say this is what we have, because sometimes the emergency money you have, like for example for CDF, you might have such little money, the MP might have such little money for emergency that it can't make a difference. But if you combine the money that the women rep has, that the governor has, that the national treasury has, then they say haba na haba hujaza kibaba. Yeah, then you'll be able to take care of this thing holistically. And also when Kiunjuri and the national government are looking into this, they also work with the counties, because the governors are the grassroots leaders, so they are the ones who know where it's biting most, which location, which ward is most hit, where the people need help most. So that even as the treasury is helping out with this issue, they have the mechanism to go right to where the problem is, and the governors know that. So I think people need to sit down and talk and take the lives of our citizens at utmost priority.
Yeah. Maybe also I can pose a question to Senator Elachi, because and we're going to talk about we've talked about the drought. There's also the doctor strike, and there was some comments, especially yesterday on social media, that we have people dying in hospitals, you have people dying on the doctor strike, yet all the country's focus seems to be on voter registration. So do you think it's also a matter of priority?
Yes, and I was just about to say that I think let us prioritize everything, and I think you need the vote, then the vote has to be alive. So for me, if you ask me as a country, yes, people will go for voter registration. I know Kenyans like last minute things, so not many of them are even bothering to go, but the last few days you'll see how the lines will be so long. So since we are used to last minute, And this is also last minute, because if you ask me, 11 counties should have planned earlier. They know. I mean, when you look at even in your shamba, you will know going forward, I have planted, but I'm going to have challenges because of how the seasons are looking. So for me, when we wait until the cows are dying, people are dying, they are eating berries, is when now we come out, it's as if it has just hit us. It's like a disaster, a natural, and yet it is something that we know. It's not fair to the country, to even the people who we have given to manage. So for me, I will tell Kenyans, I mean, let us look at these 11 counties. And I doubt whether the 11 counties are even bothering about voter registration. I saw some from Baringo say, if you dare bring your IBC people here, we will chase them away. So let's go there. Let's first deal. Every human being, first priority is food. Because he knows without food and water, I am going. So that's their priority. So I think that's the priority, and nobody should go there to force them to do voter registration. We have the whole 1 month. Let us deal with this. We will go there and they will still register as voters. So let us take the priority first. This is the priority, if you ask me. Yes.
All right, of course, we'll continue the conversation. Like we told you, there is blame game at Treasury. There's also seems to be some infighting as regards the doctor strike. We're going to be talking about that next, but for now, I want to toss it over to learn more about beauty from Kagai. Kagai?
What I have used to fill in my eyebrows